Husband posted on Facebook, moving to Thailand with my new girl. But I took everything first. Imagine waking up, grabbing your coffee, and scrolling through Facebook only to see a post from your husband saying he's moving to Thailand with his new girlfriend. No warning, no conversation, just a public declaration of betrayal. But here's the kicker: he thought I was clueless. He thought I would crumble. What he didn't know, I'd been watching, preparing, and waiting. And when he tried to take everything from me, I turned the tables in a way he never saw coming. Stay with me, because this is a revenge story you won't believe. Sitting at my desk that Tuesday morning, I took a sip of my coffee, scrolling mindlessly through my notifications. My heart stopped mid-sip as my eyes landed on a post that should have never existed. Moving to Bali with my new girl. Fresh start, new life. Ethan's name sat proudly above those words, his profile picture showing that same smug smile I had once fallen for. My fingers tightened around my coffee mug as my entire body went numb. I stared at the screen, my mind racing through the implications of what I was seeing. The comments beneath it were already piling up: shock, disbelief, excitement from some, sympathy from others. My name wasn't mentioned anywhere. No divorce announcement, no explanation, just a new life, a fresh start. Without me, I should have been devastated. Any normal wife would have been. But instead, I felt a strange, eerie calm settle over me. I placed my coffee down, wiped my sweaty palms against my jeans, and typed a single response: okay. Then I logged off. He had no idea what was coming. My name is Alyssa Carter. I'm 45 years old, a cybersecurity specialist living in Seattle, Washington. For 20 years, I had been Ethan's wife, his partner, the woman who stood by him through every career move, every financial struggle, every personal setback. I had believed in our marriage, in our shared dreams. I had trusted him. And now, he had discarded me like I was nothing more than a forgotten chapter in his life, announcing our end not through a heartfelt conversation, not even through a cold, impersonal email, but on Facebook for the whole world to see. But here's the thing. Ethan thought I was naive. He thought I was just a quiet, predictable wife who would crumble under the weight of his betrayal. He thought I would sit back and watch while he drained our accounts, packed his bags, and jetted off to paradise with some younger woman on my dime. He thought he had outsmarted me. He was wrong. I had seen the signs long before this public spectacle. The late nights at work, the hushed phone calls, the sudden interest in our finances. Ethan was never the kind of man who paid attention to numbers. He left all of that to me. But over the last 6 months, he had started asking questions, subtly poking around about our savings, our investments, even my personal accounts. And then there were the disappearances, the business trips that didn't quite line up with his company's schedule, the restaurant receipts from places we had never been together, the scent of unfamiliar perfume lingering on his shirts. I wasn't stupid. I just played along. While Ethan thought he was orchestrating the perfect escape, I had been preparing my own plan, quietly, strategically. Because if there's one thing I've learned from my years in cybersecurity, it's that the best way to beat someone isn't through brute force, it's through precision, through patience, through gathering every little breadcrumb of evidence and waiting for the right moment to strike. So instead of confronting him, I watched. I documented. I dug into every digital trace he left behind. I retrieved deleted messages, pulled up transaction records, traced IP addresses. And as I pieced it all together, one truth became clear: Ethan wasn't just cheating. He was planning to disappear. With her. Her name was Sophia, 29, a so-called wellness coach who ran an online business teaching manifestation techniques and yoga retreats in Bali. The more I uncovered, the more laughable it became. The trips, the hidden bank transfers, the luxury resort bookings, all of it leading up to this grand, fresh start he had just broadcasted to the world. He wasn't just leaving me. He was trying to erase me. But I wasn't about to let that happen. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly, my fingers tapping against the desk. Ethan was probably feeling victorious right now, waiting for the chaos to unfold, waiting for me to beg, to cry, to lash out. He didn't know that I had already drained our joint accounts legally, of course redirecting every cent that rightfully belonged to me. He didn't know that I had already frozen the assets he thought he could claim. He didn't know that while he had been dreaming about white sand beaches and a carefree life with his new girlfriend, I had been consulting the best divorce attorney in Seattle, preparing to strip him of everything. I glanced at my phone as it buzzed. A message from my best friend, Rachel. Alyssa. WTF. Did you see his post? Are you okay? I smiled to myself. The first real smile I'd had in weeks. Oh, I had seen it. And I was more than okay. I grabbed my phone and typed back. Don't worry. This is going to be fun. Then I got to work. I sat in my dimly lit home office, staring at my computer screen, the glow casting eerie shadows across the room. Ethan's Facebook post was still up, the likes and comments piling in. Some people were cheering him on, calling him brave for starting over. Others were shocked, confused, wondering where I fit into this narrative. I let out a slow, measured breath. Let them wonder. Let Ethan bask in his moment of triumph. It was all going according to plan. I picked up my coffee, now lukewarm, and scrolled through my private email account. Everything was ready. The bank transfers were complete. Our joint savings account was empty legally, of course, split in a way that ensured I took what was rightfully mine. The house? Already refinanced in my name. The investments he thought were shared? Reallocated. Every credit card linked to me was closed. Every access point he had to my financial world had been systematically cut off, and he didn't even know it yet. He thought he was playing chess, but I had been 10 moves ahead. I leaned back in my chair, glancing at the open file on my desktop. Every suspicious bank transaction, every call log, every late-night hotel booking that Ethan thought he had covered up, it was all documented. I had spent months gathering evidence, not just for myself, but for legal leverage. Ethan didn't just cheat. He tried to manipulate our finances, rerouting funds to secret accounts he assumed. I wouldn't notice. I noticed. And then there was her, Sophia, 29, a self-proclaimed healer who ran overpriced retreats for burned-out executives looking to reconnect with their spiritual energy. I had found her through one of Ethan's expense reports, a series of payments disguised as business consultations. A quick search revealed who she really was, an opportunist. And judging by Ethan's latest social media stunt, she had convinced him that running away to Bali was the answer to all of life's problems. I should have been furious. I should have felt betrayed. But all I felt was an icy determination. My phone buzzed. Rachel again. You need to say something. He's making you look like a fool, I smirked. Not yet. Instead, I texted my lawyer, confirming our meeting for the following morning. Diana had been a godsend, a no-nonsense, razor-sharp divorce attorney who had seen this kind of situation play out before. Men like your husband always think they're the smartest person in the room, she had told me during our first consultation. They assume their wives are too emotional, too weak to fight back. They never see it coming. Ethan was about to see it coming. I picked up my phone and made another call, one I had been dreading but knew was necessary. Mom? I said when she picked up. Alyssa! Honey, I was just about to call you. Have you seen Ethan's? I saw it. She hesitated. Are you okay? I forced a small laugh. I'm better than okay, she exhaled. I don't understand. He didn't even talk to you. Just posted that for the world to see? Mom, I need you to trust me on this. Just don't engage with him. Don't say anything publicly. I have everything under control. A long silence. Then, Alyssa, what are you planning? I glanced at the file on my screen, at the months of careful documentation, at the legal papers already drafted and ready to go. I thought about the accounts Ethan no longer had access to, the fact that by the time he got to Bali, he'd realize he didn't have a penny left to his name. I'm planning, I said, voice calm, to let him dig his own grave. That night, I barely slept. Not because I was heartbroken, but because my mind was already calculating the next steps. Ethan thought he had everything under control. He thought he had manipulated the narrative, but soon he'd learn that the game he was playing wasn't one he could win. The next morning, I arrived at Diana's office, dressed sharply in my navy blue blazer, hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. No signs of the devastated wife Ethan probably expected me to be. Diana greeted me with a knowing smile. It's showtime. She laid out the paperwork, everything. I needed to file for divorce under fraud, financial misconduct, and infidelity. With the evidence I had gathered, Ethan wasn't just walking away empty-handed. He was walking away owing me. Does he know yet? Diana asked. I shook my head. He will soon. As she prepared the final filings, I took out my phone and finally typed my response to Ethan's Facebook post. Wishing you and Sophia the best. Just make sure you check your bank accounts before boarding that flight. Safe travels. I hit send, and then I waited. So there I was, sitting across from him as he smugly told me how fair he'd be in our divorce. Meanwhile, I had already secured my finances, locked him out of our accounts, and gathered evidence that would ruin him. But what do you think happened next? Did he fight back? Or did he crumble under the weight of his own lies? Comment 111. If you think he tried to retaliate. Or Wu 22 fought. If you think his world came crashing down in an instant. Let's see who guesses right. The moment I hit send, I knew the real fun was about to begin. Ethan had spent months orchestrating his grand escape, convinced that I would crumble the second he made his big move. What he didn't realize was that I had already rewritten the script. I leaned back in my chair, watching my phone, waiting for the inevitable. It didn't take long. The first sign of panic came in the form of a text message, flashing across my screen less than 10 minutes later. Ethan, what the hell does that mean? I let out a small laugh, swirling my coffee as I watched the 3 little dots dance on my screen. He was typing, erasing, typing again. He was rattled. Good. Then, another message. Ethan, Alyssa, I need you to call me. Right now. I didn't. Instead, I took my time finishing my breakfast, enjoying the rare silence of the house without his presence looming over me. For years, I had been the one cleaning up his messes, smoothing over his mistakes, making excuses for his behavior. Not anymore. Ethan was about to get a crash course in what happened when you underestimated the wrong woman. By the time I checked my phone again, the missed calls had stacked up. 5, 10, 12. Then, one from an unknown number, probably him on Sophia's phone. I ignored it. And then, finally, the moment I had been waiting for an email. Subject line, urgent. Please respond. I clicked it open, sipping my coffee as I read. Alyssa, I don't know what game you think you're playing, but we need to talk. Now. I just tried to access our accounts, and my cards aren't working. I called the bank, and they said my name was removed from everything. This is a mistake. Fix it. Now. A mistake. I smirked, closing the email without responding. Let him sweat. Diana had warned me that this was how it would go. Men like him don't panic until they realize they've lost control, she had told me. He's going to try reasoning first. Then he'll threaten you. Then he'll beg. Let him go through all the stages. The longer you hold out, the more desperate he gets. I had no intention of making this easy for him. By noon, the floodgates had truly opened. The Facebook post that had once been flooded with cheers and congratulations had turned into a disaster. Friends were asking questions. Family members were confused. Where's Alyssa in all this? What's going on? And then, the best part, Sophia. She had clearly been blindsided. In between Ethan's frantic messages, I saw a new comment pop up under his post. Sophia, wait, what's happening? Oh, sweetheart. If only you knew. I tapped my fingers against the desk, considering my next move. Part of me wanted to keep sitting back, watching it all implode in real time. But another part of me? The part of me that had spent years being disrespected, dismissed, treated like a placeholder, that part wanted to twist the knife just a little deeper. So I opened Facebook, scrolled to Ethan's post, and typed one final comment. Guess you didn't check your accounts before making that big announcement. Oops. Good luck in Bali. Then I logged off and waited for the explosion. The aftermath of my comment unfolded exactly as I had predicted. Within minutes, Ethan's Facebook post went from a smug declaration of freedom to a public disaster. The comments kept pouring in questions, confusion, and then, slowly, pity. Not for him, for me. Or at least, that's what they thought. Wait, Alyssa didn't know? Damn, dude, this is cold. You didn't even talk to your wife first? And then, my personal favorite, LMAO. He really thought he could just run off without consequences. Oh, Ethan, you absolute fool. I could almost hear the panic radiating from his fingertips as he furiously typed, trying to save face. Ethan, guys, let's not jump to conclusions. Alyssa and I had been growing apart for a while. This was a mutual decision. Mutual. I let out a laugh, shaking my head. If it had been mutual, why had he never once mentioned it to me? Why had he been siphoning money from our accounts for months? Why had he booked his flight to Bali before even telling me he was leaving? But the best part? Sophia wasn't buying it either. Her response hit like a hammer. Sophia, Ethan, what's going on? You told me everything was taken care of. Taken care of. I leaned back in my chair, letting the words settle in. There it was. The unraveling. She had believed his lies just as much as I once had. But now, the foundation was crumbling beneath her feet, and she was realizing the truth. Ethan was not a man of his word. He was a coward. A few moments later, another message popped up on my phone. Rachel, girl, what the hell is happening? Sophia is going off in the comments. I clicked back onto the post. Sophia, so you lied to me? You said you had access to everything. You told me you had money. You said we were leaving in 2 days. 2 days. I smirked. Ethan had planned to vanish without a trace in 48 hours, leaving me to pick up the pieces of his mess. But now he had nothing. I closed my laptop and stretched, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in years, I wasn't worried about what Ethan was doing. I wasn't waiting up, wondering if he was coming home. I wasn't doubting my instincts. No, now I was in control. A new email popped up in my inbox. I clicked it open, my eyes scanning over the words from my lawyer. Alyssa, just a heads up, Ethan's lawyer reached out. He's panicking, wants to meet. Your move. I smiled, finishing the last sip of my coffee. Let him wait. By the next morning, the chaos had fully erupted. Ethan had gone from confidently posting about his fresh start to desperately trying to control the damage. His original post was still up, but now the comments section had turned into a war zone. Sophia was furious. His friends were confused, and strangers had started chiming in, making jokes at his expense. So, Bali's still happening. Or, nah, damn, Ethan. You really thought you could just announce your affair like a job promotion? Bro, I'd delete this if I were you. The more he tried to respond, the worse it got. His vague attempts at damage control, claiming we had grown apart, and this was a mutual decision, only fueled the fire. People weren't stupid. They could see what was really happening. And Sophia? She was done playing along. Sophia, so you're just gonna ignore me now? You told me you had money. You promised me a fresh start. But now I find out you can't even access your own accounts? Sophia, what else did you lie about, Ethan? I could imagine the scene playing out in real time, Sophia pacing, her phone clutched in her hand, scrolling through bank apps that no longer worked. Ethan, scrambling to explain, to reassure her, to regain control. But there was nothing left for him to control. As I sipped my morning coffee, my phone buzzed. Another email from my lawyer. Subject, Ethan's lawyer requesting a meeting urgent. Diana had been handling everything with her usual efficiency, and she already knew what my response would be. I didn't need to rush. Ethan was the one in free fall. The longer I let him dangle, the more desperate he'd become. Sure enough, a few minutes later, my phone rang. Ethan's name flashed across the screen. I let it go to voicemail, then another call, and another. By the fifth, I finally pressed play on one of the messages. His voice was tight, controlled, but beneath it, I could hear the panic. Alyssa, we need to talk. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this isn't funny. My accounts are locked, and I can't get into anything. Call me back. Now. I smiled, deleting the message. He was still in denial, still convinced he could intimidate me into fixing the mess he had created. Then another voicemail came in. This time, the tone had shifted. Look, I know you're upset, and I get it, okay? I handled things the wrong way, but this doesn't have to be ugly. Just call me. Let's figure this out. I'll make it right. Make it right. I almost laughed out loud. The man who had been planning his escape for months, draining our accounts and booking flights behind my back, was now asking me to make things right? I leaned back in my chair, watching the sunlight filter through the curtains. A month ago, I might have fallen for this. I might have picked up the phone, let him manipulate me, let him twist the story into something more convenient for him. But that woman was gone. Instead, I forwarded his messages to Diana and sent her a quick text. Let's make him sweat a little longer. And then I went on with my day, knowing that Ethan's perfect plan had already turned to dust. By the end of the day, Ethan's panic had reached a whole new level. My phone was a battlefield of missed calls, unread messages, and increasingly frantic voicemails. He had officially cycled through every stage: denial, anger, bargaining, and now he was teetering somewhere between desperation and outright collapse. I knew this because his last voicemail had been the most pathetic yet. Alyssa, please. You have to talk to me. I don't know what's happening. My cards are all frozen, I can't access my accounts, and Sophia, she's pissed. She's threatening to leave. I just need to understand what's going on. Can we just talk? No, Ethan. We couldn't just talk, because I wasn't the one who needed answers. He was. And the fact that he was still scrambling to piece together the puzzle only proved just how little he had considered me in his grand plan. He had assumed I'd be devastated. He had assumed I'd be too weak to fight back. He had assumed I'd just let him waltz out of my life while he drained our savings and ran off to some tropical paradise with his new girlfriend. But now, he was the one trapped. I let the voicemail play out, listening to the exhaustion in his voice, the quiet tremor of a man who had thought he was in control and was now realizing far too late that the ground had been ripped out from under him. And I wasn't done yet. I opened my laptop and pulled up my email. Diana had already forwarded me the latest update. His lawyer is pushing for a meeting first thing tomorrow. He's rattled. You have all the leverage. Want me to drag this out longer? I smirked. Absolutely. Ethan wanted me to clean up his mess. He wanted me to swoop in and save him just like I had done for years. Not a chance. I took my time crafting a response before hitting send. Tell them I'm busy. We'll talk when I'm ready. And then I turned off my phone, curled up in bed, and slept better than I had in years. By the time I finally agreed to a meeting, Ethan was unraveling. His lawyer had called Diana 3 times that morning alone, practically begging for a sit down. He wanted answers. He wanted control. But what he really wanted was an escape hatch, a way to undo the damage before it crushed him completely. I wasn't going to give him that. Instead, I walked into Diana's office at noon, calm and composed, my confidence so unshaken that Ethan's face immediately betrayed his own insecurity. He looked rough, his usually neat hair was unkempt, his dress shirt wrinkled, and the dark circles under his eyes told me he hadn't slept much. Good. I sat across from him, folding my hands on the polished wood table, while his lawyer, some generic, overpaid man in his 50s, who probably thought I was an emotional wreck, adjusted his tie and cleared his throat. Alyssa, thank you for meeting with us, he started, offering a tight, rehearsed smile. I think we can all agree that this situation has escalated in a way that's unnecessary. I said nothing, just let the silence stretch. Ethan fidgeted, tapping his fingers on the table. Diana, sitting next to me, leaned back in her chair, her expression unreadable. She had coached me for this moment. Let them talk first. Let them assume you're here to negotiate. Let them believe they have even an ounce of power left. Ethan cleared his throat, trying to sound casual. Look, Alyssa, I get that you're mad. I should have handled things differently. You should have told me you were leaving before you posted it on Facebook, I interrupted, my voice even. You should have discussed finances with me before you started funneling money into a separate account. You should have had the decency to end things privately instead of blindsiding me in front of hundreds of people. His jaw tightened. I was going to talk to you, I scoffed. You were going to be in Bali before I even saw the damn post. His lawyer cleared his throat again, sensing that Ethan was losing his grip. Alyssa, let's focus on what's important. Ethan is prepared to offer a fair division of assets. He's willing to forego certain claims in exchange for access to his share of the financial accounts. I tilted my head. His share? Diana pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. You might want to take a closer look at the documents we've prepared. Ethan hesitated before flipping it open. As he scanned the pages, I watched his face shift from frustration to full-blown panic. Wait, what is this? His voice wavered. That, Diana said smoothly, is a full record of every financial transaction over the last 12 months. It includes the money you transferred to Sophia, the flights, hotels, and gifts you expensed under fraudulent business reports, and, of course, the attempt to liquidate a joint investment account without Alyssa's consent. Ethan paled. This isn't— Oh, and here's the best part, I added, leaning in. We've already filed an injunction preventing you from accessing any shared assets. Which means— I gestured toward him. That little vacation fund you thought you had? It's frozen. He turned to his lawyer, his voice dropping. You told me I had time. His lawyer sighed, rubbing his temple. I told you to not make any big moves until we secured an agreement, but you didn't listen. Ethan looked back at me, his desperation barely concealed now. Alyssa, this doesn't have to be ugly. We can figure something out. No, I cut him off. You don't get to decide how this goes. You made your choices. You lied. You stole. You humiliated me. And now, you get to live with the consequences. The silence in the room was suffocating. Ethan's lawyer shifted uncomfortably, already realizing there was no saving his client from this. Diana closed the folder with a snap. Ethan, here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign the divorce papers today. You're going to waive any claims to Alyssa's assets, including the house. In return, we won't pursue legal action for financial fraud. Ethan's mouth opened, then shut. He looked down at the papers in front of him, his fingers tightening around the pen, and then, in a low, broken voice, he asked, What if I refuse? I smiled. Then I will press charges. And trust me, Ethan, I've got enough evidence to bury you. The fight drained out of him. He exhaled shakily, his shoulders sagging, and then, slowly, he picked up the pen. I watched as he signed his name. Every stroke of ink, a confirmation of his defeat. Ethan's hand trembled as he signed the last document, the weight of his downfall pressing down on him. I watched his knuckles turn white, his fingers gripping the pen as if he could somehow rewrite the past, undo every mistake, every betrayal. But there was no way out now. He had sealed his fate the moment he thought I would sit quietly and let him destroy me. The silence in the room was thick, suffocating. His lawyer shifted uncomfortably in his seat, clearly realizing that any chance of negotiating a better deal had long since slipped through his client's fingers. Ethan finally set the pen down, exhaling shakily as he pushed the papers toward Diana. His voice was barely above a whisper. There, happy now? I leaned forward, my voice calm but firm. Not happy. Just done. Diana collected the documents, double-checking each signature before sliding them into her folder. She didn't rush. She wanted Ethan to feel every agonizing second of this. And judging by the sheer defeat radiating off him, it was working. His lawyer cleared his throat, forcing some professionalism into the room. We'll have everything processed by the end of the week. Ethan will remove himself from all shared accounts immediately, Diana smirked. Oh, don't worry. He already has. Ethan's jaw clenched, but he didn't argue. He knew better now. I stood, smoothing out my blouse as I grabbed my purse. I was ready to leave, ready to walk out of this office and finally put him behind me. But just as I turned toward the door, Ethan spoke again. Alyssa, wait, I should have ignored him. I should have walked out without giving him the satisfaction of a final conversation. But something in his voice, the desperation, the sheer pathetic regret made me pause. I turned slowly, tilting my head. What? His eyes darted toward his lawyer, as if trying to decide how much he could say in front of him. Then, after a long, shaky breath, he ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. You don't have to do this. I laughed an actual full laugh. He flinched at the sound. I don't have to do what, Ethan? Protect myself? Fight back? Make sure you don't get away with screwing me over? His Adam's apple bobbed as he swallowed hard. I made a mistake, I scoffed. You made a choice. Over and over again, you don't understand, he insisted, voice rising. Things weren't. I wasn't happy, Alyssa. I felt stuck. I felt like I was drowning. I raised an eyebrow. So what? That justified stealing? Lying? Humiliating me on social media? He rubbed his hands over his face. I didn't think it would go this far. And that's your problem, Ethan. You never thought I'd fight back. You never thought I'd outplay you. He looked up, eyes darting between me and Diana. Please, don't do this. We can fix this. I stared at him for a long moment, taking in the sheer audacity of his plea. The man who had planned to drain our accounts, abandon me, and start over with his mistress was now asking me to reconsider. I shook my head, stepping closer. You really don't get it, do you? My voice was barely above a whisper, but the anger laced through it made Ethan stiffen. I don't want to fix anything. I don't want you back. I don't even want revenge. I just want you to face the consequences of your own damn actions. His face twisted into something bitter, something ugly. You really think you won? I smiled, tilting my head. Oh, Ethan, I didn't just win. I annihilated you. And with that, I turned on my heel and walked out, leaving him sitting there, drowning in the ruins of everything he'd tried to take from me. The moment I stepped out of that law office, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. The air outside felt different, lighter, as if the weight of Ethan's betrayal had finally lifted. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the crisp autumn air of downtown Chicago. The city bustled around me, cars honking, people moving with purpose, but for the first time in months, I wasn't just going through the motions. I was truly present, truly free. Diana walked beside me, her sharp heels clicking against the pavement. She glanced at me with a smirk, her perfectly lined eyes filled with amusement. You did good in there, Alyssa. You didn't let him rattle you. I smiled, shaking my head. I think I've finally realized something, Diana. Ethan never had power over me. I just let him think he did. She nodded approvingly. That's how they get away with it for so long. But once you see through the act, game over, game over. Those words echoed in my mind as I got into my car and drove back to the house, my house now. The very home Ethan had planned to sell out from under me, the one he had envisioned sharing with his mistress while I was left scrambling. Not anymore. I had fought for this, and I had won. As I pulled into the driveway, the sight of my front door brought back memories. Some good, some painful, but none of them defined me anymore. I wasn't clinging to the past. I was taking back my future. Inside, I set my bag down and walked through the living room, my heels sinking into the plush carpet. The house was quieter than usual, but it wasn't an empty, aching kind of quiet. It was peaceful, safe. A place that was mine again. I made my way to the kitchen, pouring myself a glass of wine and leaning against the counter. The last few months had been a whirlwind: secrets, betrayals, battles fought in silence, but now, standing here, I had survived. More than that, I had won. And Ethan? He was nowhere to be found. I heard from Diana a few days later that Ethan had tried and failed to secure another lawyer. Word had spread quickly about the ironclad evidence we had against him. The financial records, the fraudulent transfers, the extravagant spending. No respectable attorney wanted to represent a man who had burned every bridge and had nothing left to bargain with. He called me twice that week. I didn't answer. I didn't even listen to the voicemails. I forwarded them straight to Diana. By the end of the month, Ethan was drowning. His accounts were frozen, his company had blacklisted him, and Jessica, the woman he had risked everything for, had disappeared. Turns out she had been using him just as much as he had tried to use me. And once his money was gone, so was she. Poetic justice. One afternoon, I was in my office, finally catching up on work, when my sister, Kate, called. "You're not gonna believe this," she said, barely containing her laughter. "Ethan's staying at a motel outside the city." "A motel, Alyssa?" "The guy who used to brag about luxury vacations is now trying to stretch out his last few bucks in a place with vending machine dinners." I couldn't help but chuckle. Well, I guess he got his fresh start after all. Just not the one he wanted. Kate snorted. "You're evil." "I love it." But I wasn't evil. I hadn't done anything to him, he had done it all to himself. Every betrayal, every selfish decision, every lie Ethan had set the fire, and I had simply let it burn. Weeks passed and life settled into a new normal, a better normal. I threw myself into work, into rebuilding my life the way I wanted it, not as someone's wife, not as someone's afterthought, but as me. One evening, as I was cooking dinner, my phone buzzed with a message. "Diana, it's done." I took a deep breath before opening the attachment. She had sent a finalized divorce decree. It was official. Ethan was no longer my problem. I stared at the document for a long time, letting the reality of it settle in. This wasn't just the end of something, it was the beginning of something better. I grabbed my wine glass, stepped out onto my balcony, and watched the city lights flicker in the distance. The same city Ethan had tried to escape, the same city I had fought to reclaim. And as I took a sip, I smiled. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't thinking about Ethan. I was thinking about me. And just like that, the man who tried to erase me with a single Facebook post lost everything: his money, his career, his so-called new life. Meanwhile, I walked away stronger, smarter, and completely in control. But tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you have done the same? Or would you have taken revenge in an even bigger way? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I can't wait to hear how you would have handled this. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: never underestimate yourself. People like Ethan thrive on manipulation, thinking they can control you, deceive you, and leave you powerless. But knowledge is power. Financial security is power. And most importantly, self-respect is power. I didn't just survive, I took back everything he tried to steal from me. So, to every woman out there, protect yourself, educate yourself, and never let anyone make you feel small. Because when the time comes, you won't just walk away, you'll walk away on top. And trust me, there's no better feeling than that.